Hi, this is Kevin Diaz. You're listening to WHCP Cambridge Community Radio. I'm here with Dave Wheelan from the Spy, and we're talking to Mayor Steve Rideout, who is now Mayor, what, you're in your third or fourth week?
Fifth week, maybe, yep.
How's it going so far?
Very busy. Having an interesting learning experience, listening out in the community, meeting a lot of people in regard to a number of issues. So it's and getting ready to start trying to encourage the council to do some things that I think need to get done here in the community.
How's it going with the council so far? Because this is a new council, well, relatively new. They've all been in office just a little over a year.
Well, that's almost 2 years for them. It'll be 2 years in, I guess, January.
In January, right.
And I mean, they're knowledgeable. They have their issues. They're doing their work. One of the issues that may be coming up, I'll be happy to talk about at some point when you get around to it. But and that's about kids and services here in the community and
right.
Whatnot. But happy to talk about that or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Are you finding it collegial though? I mean, I know I hate to like bring up cheap politics, but I know some of the members, the majority of them, had to endorse your opponent in the race. But this is a small town. We all know each other, right? Everyone's getting along.
Yeah, so far. I mean, I have some issues, disagreements, but I mean that's part of governance and part of learning from one another about what the issues are and how people view those issues. So I'm doing fine. I mean, nobody's come up and clobbered me in the back of the head or whispered something nasty in my ear.
And the meetings sound more orderly than they used to. You're working the gavel, it sounds like.
Well, I'm trying to help follow the rules, which is important and was important in my past life. And I think in terms of making sure the council does its business as it's supposed to, right. You got to follow the rules.
Fair enough.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Good to
Dave,
see
good
you
morning.
this morning. You know, I do want to get into the particulars, but we do have an election coming up on Tuesday.
Yes.
And having just gone through an election yourself, could you kind of get a sense of where the county and the Cambridge itself is as we go into this important midterm?
Well, with the county election, I mean, I don't have any special inside information from anybody. Well, certainly I'll predict that William Nichols will win. And,
going out on a limb here.
yeah. But I mean, there are three competitive races. I think that in District 5, all of the candidates out there are good qualified people, and I think we'll have whoever wins out there will be a good council member. Based on the work that I've been doing with Dorchester Citizens for Better Government, I'm hopeful that we will wind up with 3 commissioners who will be willing to look at the charter changes that the Charter Commission recommended and that we are still pursuing, so that we can try to get some solid language into the charter that will help future commissioners or council members run the county better than I think it has been.
And just to clarify for our listeners, to be clear, the 2 charter changes, number 1 was to make available the meetings either on television or online, and number 2, to make their agendas, the more detailed agendas, available to the public in advance.
Well, that was one of the.
And the other?
And the other is about the county manager and
right.
ensuring that that they hire somebody. We have been now a year, and we are now into the 11th month that we have not had a county manager. They have an acting county manager who is doing her job and also the acting county manager's job. And we really need somebody, a professional, to take on that role so that he or she and our city manager can start talking about issues of mutual importance so that city council and county council can get back to having meetings to talk about issues that are of importance to both the city and the county.
And why does it matter to the city? What's important? I mean, why does the city have a stake in good county management? You know, are there any specific issues that come to mind that you think really where the rubber hits the road here in Cambridge?
Well, from my perspective now as mayor, I mean, one of the things is children's issues. The county in the past has funded the rec department and the school system. I'm not aware of any other funding that has been made available for after-school programs. Certainly, they now have the Leonard's Lane building that the Boys and Girls Club is running, but that's the first thing that I have seen in the 12 years that I have been here that the county has really been engaged in, and the Boys and Girls Club is not, they're not charging us for, or the county for those services. So having more programs, more after-school programs throughout the county for children. Quite frankly, funding, more funding for the school system is, I think, critically important. And we haven't had the opportunity to have those conversations to see how that might happen. Those conversations stopped, I think, in 2019 or 2020, just because the county said we aren't going to meet anymore.
What about on the...
Who makes that decision? Is that the council, or is that the president of the council that says we just don't have time for you?
Well, I was told when I was on city council before that it was the decision of a majority of the council not to meet. And at that juncture, the president and two other colleagues had the majority vote to make that happen. But I know, I talked with Lenny Pfeffer and Ricky Travers otherwise, and they were not in favor of that happening.
So have you formally made an invitation for this to be resumed?
I'm not going to make that invitation until after the election, because it's going to fall on deaf ears at this juncture.
Yeah.
What about on the federal level? There's a congressional election going on right now. Heather Mazur running as a Democratic challenger to Republican Andy Harris. Now, Andy Harris has made a political point of saying that he is not interested in congressional earmarks, that is, congressionally allocated projects for your district, calls that pork barrel spending. If, as the mayor of this town, if you could go to Congress and ask for some kind of an earmark, some kind of a project that would help the city of Cambridge, what would it be?
Well, interestingly, I've had a discussion just yesterday about that, and I see federal funding being more of a regional need. Rural areas don't have enough people the city of Cambridge doesn't have enough people to effectively use a residential treatment program or a less secure facility. And I found this out when I was on the bench in Alexandria and talked to colleagues around the country, around Virginia, who were in rural areas, where they couldn't get what they needed and had to go to a regional kind of an arrangement for services. So I would say we would look to the federal government to, for instance, a less secure facility for children who charged with delinquency but shouldn't be locked up, but going home would be a challenge, and they may not be safe, or it was a domestic violence incident at home, so putting them back in the home is not the place to put them. So where do they go? And right now, the magistrate has very limited options as to where that child goes. So having that kind of a facility that would be regional in nature, and for ongoing funding, and we did this in Northern Virginia, you would fund it on the basis of usage by each county on a 3-year, 5-year rotating basis. So if a county was using it more, then they would pay more of the total cost to run the facility.
Fair enough. Going to take a quick break here, and we'll be right back with Mayor Steve Rideout and with David Wheelan of the Spy. Just hold on just a sec, folks. Thanks. We're back with Mayor Steve Rideout and David Wheelan of the Spy. We're talking about governance and issues before the city right now. We were just talking about congressional appropriations, or the lack thereof. What else do you want to talk about, Dave?
Mayor, yesterday, the Chestertown Spy interviewed the mayor of Chestertown, and the subject was tax differentials.
One of my favorite topics.
Yeah, I was going to say. And, I think that we'll be hearing more about this during your term, I'm sure. But for the layman out there, could you just describe the issue in the most simplistic terms so people can grasp what's at stake and why it's important for you to spend so much time on this?
Okay, well, there are tax differentials between what city residents pay for county taxes and what county residents pay for county taxes. And the differential is meant to give credit for what the city is providing in the way of services that the county does not have to provide. So, for instance, Cambridge provides police force. Cambridge provides planning and zoning. We provide other resources that the county does not have to provide. To not have that, we'd have to give up our police force and have the sheriff run everything. We'd have to give up our planning and zoning and have county planning and zoning do that. Well, there's that cost. I mean, the police department costs more than the sheriff's department does here in Dorchester County and Cambridge. So there's a differential that the taxpayer has to gets a benefit of here, but it's not enough. I'm told that this differential was established back in the 1990s here, and every time Robbie Hansen and I went to the county council to talk about it, it was, oh, we've already got that settled, and you're not entitled to any tax differential. Now, it isn't money that would come to the city; it's money that would come to the taxpayer. The city taxpayer would not have to pay as much in county taxes if the differential were better proportion to what we are actually contributing. And in that regard, going back to the county not providing resources for kids, I've been here 12 years. I haven't seen much. I think the city's got to do it because we have such a need for these after-school programs, the midnight basketball, the kinds of things that will get the kids off the street and out of danger, and they are clearly in danger here more so than out in the county, and we got to be able to pay for that. And if we do, then we ought to make a greater differential so the taxpayers aren't having to keep paying.
What's a ballpark figure of what that gap might be on an average year? Can you just throw out something so people get a sense of what's at stake here?
I can't. I mean, I didn't plan for this question, so I really haven't looked at the data. But my recollection was that we're like, 8 cents or 10 cents off of the what.
Which adds up.
Which
8 or 10 cents per what?
per-
That sounds like a
per
minuscule.
$100. I think per $100.
Okay, that adds up obviously. So.
But if we're paying more for, if you look at it's $5 million for the police department and planning and zoning. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars for staff and whatnot. It's at least something that needs to be discussed. And the way the cities have tried in the past to get the state to change that differential. Well, the people who are elected to represent us in the city are the same people who are elected to represent the people in the county. And so they're not going to go and say, okay, county, you're going to have to wind up paying residents more in your taxes. But I mean, one of the things I've thought about is that we set certain criteria by law that says these are the things you got to consider. And if the city is providing them and there's a difference, then city and county have to reach some agreement aside from whatever earlier agreements there may have been. And here, I think the differential to the taxpayers here in the city would be significantly more.
Mayor, you brought up the police department. We just went through Halloween, and one of my neighbors the other day said, with this new chief, it's felt like night and day here in Cambridge. We see a lot more police running around. They're holding meetings, they're doing things, they're reaching out to the community.
Yep.
Have you noticed that, and can you comment?
Justin Todd is doing a great job. The whole concept of community policing. He and I had a conversation about curfews, which one of the commissioners is suggesting apparently legislation for, and which really goes contra to community policing and the concepts of community policing. But the police department is very much engaged in changing how the community looks at the department. Had a great conversation with Sergeant Patton about how we could engage maybe citizens being hired by the police department. Also talked with Chief Todd about this as well. But to have citizens hired for the police department who would be able to run the police athletic league instead of making the officers have to run that while they're also out there protecting us. So running a basketball league where we would have police, fire, some of the student athletes from the high school, and some kids all playing on the same team, so they get to know one another in a different kind of way. Yeah. I too saw in the Halloween, the difference was amazing. And
even bicycle officers, which is nice to see.
Didn't see them, but I will tell you, I have never seen so many kids at our house than the other night, number one, and number two, how polite they were.
Yeah.
I got more thank yous from the kids, unprovoked by their parents saying thank you.
Right, say thank you.
They were saying thank you on their own. I mean, it was really, and just a great number of cute kids, well-dressed, great costumes. It was really a neat experience.
Hey, and I don't know if you want to take credit for this or not, or if you should take credit, but I've noticed since you've been mayor, the garbage trucks come by in the morning now, like at 7, 8 in the morning. They used to come by like at 11, 12, whatever time of the day. Has there been some kind of conversation going on about that?
Well, they come by because they forget to come by and pick up mine. So,
well, they're doing a great job on Shop Tank Avenue. I'll give them credit for that.
Hey, I do want to spend a little time on the recovery money and getting a sense of how it's a challenging thing to distribute this kind of major capital. How's it going from your perspective?
Well, the good news is that the city manager understands the need to make sure that the money that has been given is going to be used appropriately. And just as there was another group that got funding for which there was a contract. It was CWDI. Every one of
That's the waterfront.
Yeah. Every one of the nonprofits that are going to get funding will have a contract to say, okay, this is what we're getting, this is what we're going to do, this is the data we're going to collect, and this is how we're going to report back on what we did, so that it's just not, here's the check, go with God and spend it however you want to. So that each organization is going to have to tell us how they're going to use that money. The real challenge, of course, is that it's one-time money. That's not coming next year. And part of what the city needs to do, and I think in collaboration with moving Dorchester forward, is to look at how we go find other grant funding, because now the local management board is under moving Dorchester forward. Where the city before, when it was when the L&B was with the county, city couldn't go after any grant funding.
What was the total amount again? Can you remind me for the pandemic money?
Well,
The ARPA money, I should say.
Well, the total was like $12 million. The amount going to, for the nonprofits, they set aside $1 million, and based on the decision the other night, it was like 850 or 900,000 was
total to
dispersed.
nonprofits.
And so there's some additional monies. I would like to see us use that in a different way, to directly benefit kids' programs that we know are either out there or we can set up quickly.
It sounds like there was some hard feelings, some pushback from African American organizations in this town that felt that they were getting the short end of the stick. I don't know if that got remedied. I know that there were changes made in the end, right?
There were, what we had was a recommendation out of the committee. The committee, I think, felt that they had not been given enough direction on how to make those decisions, and so went on their own and made some determinations that I think was then resulted in the unhappiness of some of the recipients. There was no perfect answer to the problem. I think the city council made its best effort to remedy maybe earlier miscalculations on directions, that sort of thing. But I think that the monies that came out, basically, I think everybody got something. Almost, well, no. I know that Delmarva Community Services didn't, and I think the Chesapeake Bay Foundation didn't, but or Eastern Shoreland Conservancy, I'm not sure which, but I think the vast majority of them did
Get what they're looking for.
did get certainly got something.
Okay. We can keep going for you, but I'm gonna. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your taking the time. This is Kevin Diaz again with David Wheelan of the Spy. We're talking to the mayor, and we're hoping to be able to check in with him and maybe even the city manager from time to time. So appreciate your taking the time, sir.
Thanks so much.